I know that it seems to be out of the ordinary for a Chief Justice to be talking at an APEC Leaders Forum, but it indeed gives me great pleasure to be here with you today. And please go on and try to finish your meal the best way you can. Relax, and allow me to first acknowledge the enormous effort of the leaders of this particular forum. You have Doris Magsaysay Ho. Doris is an exemplary woman in every way. We first had our long discussion on both a vessel. So at the time, our hairdos were both really wind-tossed. But now I see that we look a bit more decent today. So Tony, of course, of the Jollibee, heading the Jollibee group, on whose hamburger I partly grew. Anthony Nightingale, chair of the APEC Connectivity Working Group. Of course, you have Juan, you have Peggy, and Sungju, and Deborah, whose conversations this lunchtime have allowed me to breathe more easily and to understand what you came here for. Now, when I first received the invitation from Doris, I had my judge's interpretation mind, and I said, the most important word when we create laws always comes first. So women, and then, of course, business. So it is the relationship of women and business. And the third is, in relative importance, last, the rule of law. And I was being given 10 to 15 minutes. So I was saying, I don't think I can talk about the very complicated relationship of women, business, and the rule of law in 15 minutes with full proportional representation of all those concepts. So I will encourage you to ask more detailed questions about what I do as Chief Justice in the open forum, because I don't think the minutes I have been given are really enough. Now, I look at the APEC first, so that you understand where I'm coming from. As important, not only as a foremost people-to-people vehicle, but as an engine for creative energy. I also look at APEC as having the ability to help APEC leaders break out of the staleness of state-to-state discussions. I know that that might seem strange to some, but having already heard some discussions at the high levels of government, they can also fall into the trap of doctrinaire formulas. And you can help break them out of that mode of discussion. And it cements what APEC is for. Search for greater opportunities for people in the region. Now, I was trying to look at the important researches on women and business. And I was thinking that the research material on women seemed to indicate to me that there is not enough research that is happening on why women go to business. So I was hoping that APEC, among many private organizations interested in the topic, would do that. And I thought that the question of why women go to business has to do with the question on the difference between the motivations of women and men going to business. And ultimately, we have to bring ourselves to asking, is it related to a woman's search for meaning? And of course, the instinctive answer would be yes. And I discovered that the literature reveals that the search for more income for the family and for the self is there, but it is a universally shared trait. I also found out from the literature, and I have heard it from some of my close friends, that they went into business because they discovered that they have a talent for entrepreneurship. Or some of them discovered that there is a market demand for their outputs, such as a hobby, baking cakes, or creating decorations, or doing jewelry on a hobby level. And I thought that there was also enough literature that indicates strongly that there is a desire to have an activity or an income that can be pursued with flexibility. Excuse me for a moment. Can I ask for a glass of water, please? And I tried to come up, yung notes ko andyan? Okay. I tried to come up with an analysis of these reasons. And first, I discovered that there is, of course, a universal desire for more income across genders. But I also discovered, and I'm already distilling in the very few minutes that we have, my observations, that women are not generally being purposed by the mainstream to develop themselves into business leaders, owners, or entrepreneurs, even if early on in life they may have shown entrepreneurial talent, or it needs a process of self-discovery before women go and decide to have a business of their own. But I also thought that one of the reasons why women go into business is they wanted to have more control of their time. And because they have so many constraints to deal with, relating especially to family responsibilities, thus they have the need for more flexibility in managing their own time. And it appears that some of the business literature and even some of the feminist, literature are still out there, have not sufficiently allowed women to fully be engaged and by an articulated business model that takes into consideration the constraints and the characteristics of women. For example, what the adaptive abilities of women is already a very interesting topic for study. The more opportunities women are allowed to engage in business shows the different business models that firms and government policymakers can introduce because of the particular need-driven invention that has driven need-driven motivation for women. And we have also come up with literature, and much of them is existing, that income from MSEs that women run can be scaled up to achieve a society's objective of having inclusive growth. And family orientation, which could be and should be a major policy of any government that is concerned with human development, can be more integrated as they are now being integrated in women-run businesses. And I thought that I saw in the literature certain conclusions also that distinguishes most, not all, most of the businesses being run by women. Usually they are in service vis-a-vis hard infra-related or manufacturing businesses, except in MSMEs. And this is critical because I can relate very closely to this. Women view their businesses as a projection or extension of their relationships, their families, and their communities. And they have smaller businesses and smaller employee base. And leadership for very large entities, usually, of course, the exceptions are really outstanding, are usually family-related. And their management style is very different. It is intuitive, consensual, integrated decision-making process. On the table, I was commending Doris for having a charming way of speaking, even though the interruption she was referring to could be described by Peggy or Deborah as basically a way of a demonstration of women's abilities to smoothen out whatever miscues happen. What these literature predominantly demonstrate to us is that it is really high time for us to really think of why businesses exist, what are the core constituencies of businesses, and how should businesses be run. So my next question inevitably had to do with a question which, as Chief Justice, I'm not ever expected to ask, but now I will be asking, do we now need, as different societies in the Asia-Pacific economic area, do we need to restructure parts of our economy or business models to increase women leadership in business? And I strongly feel, yes, more flexibilities must be built in the way we do our economic models. Philippine labor laws, for example, are modeled on a very rigid manufacturing type hierarchical system of management. Women, on the other hand, use relationships very intensely and want a team effort philosophy to govern the way businesses are run. And present laws in our country do not sufficiently acknowledge that distinctive characteristic of many women-run businesses. We must also, as a group, make the case stronger for the advantages of multifaceted leadership that have been demonstrated by women-run businesses. That means the consensual, intuitive, community-based, family type feeling that are being run in businesses that are led by women should also be recognized and amply rewarded. And third, if we are going to reach our non-economic goals and we are going to look about the quality of life indices that not only have to do with the HDI indicators, but really about the question of whether a person feels more whole or not, because his personality is being considered in all its facets. Then we have to increase the incentives for businesses that are family-friendly to their own employees. And therefore, if that is so, then the legal structure, starting first with substantive law, must also respond. And taking off from what Doris was saying, we need to make the playing field more transparent, fair, predictable. We must open with open information that is internet-friendly and with simpler rules. And we encourage incentives for networking that does not destroy family time. And we lean heavily against corruption-tainted and old boys network. Forgive me for using this this gender-tainted word, but old boys network ways of doing business. What is my point here? Now I come to the third term of the theme, which is rule of law. This is how I connect in a very short way, because this is the only time I have. Allow me to demonstrate why I believe we need to restructure both the substantive law of our countries and the way we interpret those substantive laws from the judiciary's point of view. The case in point, first, developing countries and corruption in the judiciary. In discussion after discussion, whether it is locally conducted or whether it was in the International Bar Association conference that I attended as one of the speakers, where I spoke about corruption in the judiciary. There were remarks that there are, of course, judiciaries that are relatively corruption-free. So, gender was not even an issue there. But in judiciaries that are still trying to bring its standard of performance to the highest level of a corruption-free regime, the struggle to clean the ranks of the judiciary is more winnable with women being in strong leadership positions and with more women presence. And that was generally agreed to by a simple theory, backed up at the moment by survey perceptions and anecdotal evidence that female judges tend to be less prone to corruption than male judges. And the simple explanation, at this stage in our discussions, you will just have to accept that we have just simple anecdotal theories and explanations. We need to do a lot more in-depth studies on this. Women judges shun the nightlife. They usually proceed to attend to family or community responsibilities after work, whether it is to attend to children, parents, or church activities. And in such a setting, it is difficult to strike a deal, so to speak. So it is at this point just a simple explanation. So you will just allow me to put a lot of caution in that statement. The second case in point, the glass ceiling and the glass cliff. I came upon some recent literature that talks about the fact that while in some societies and in some industries the glass ceiling has been broken or shattered, there are still glass ceilings that they call invisible, because although they are non-tactile, you can still feel the cut-off point. So that still is a phenomenon that APEC leaders must address. But I also came upon an interesting counterpoint. If there is still this glass ceiling that exists for women, why in crisis situation is it perceived that women are preferred to solve and turn around businesses from going over the cliff? In other words, there was a survey for respondents' preference. In a situation of a male and a female qualified applicant, when a business is being run well by a male, the preference is for a male successor. But if a business is being run by a male and it is running into trouble, then the clear preference was for the female to get the situation again in hand and to prevent the company from going under. So they call it the glass cliff phenomenon. So I thought that we had to study the problem because it might actually be an indication that women can solve crises better in some situations, that in tough, difficult, socially complicated situations, such as in developing countries that are facing corruption, women tend to make better judgments, like our anecdotal stories about women judges, and that there is something really about the female style of management that must be recognized by mainstream business literature and by mainstream documents regarding the structuring of economies. And these are, again, my tentative theories. I don't know really when my husband was reading my presentation whether he felt he was agreeing with my theories or not, but I'm sure he was so good at hiding his hurt. Joke, this is just a joke. So I think women can develop consensus more easily. And if you are in trouble, then the best next candidate would be a consensus builder, right? So I thought that women can do that. And a woman can make the employees feel that the enterprise is a family and you do everything you can to save your family. And I think women are more effective people when it comes to making the call for sacrifice. Now, as Chief Justice and the rule of law, what can female leadership do? As Doris said, I am only one of the 3 female Chief Justices in the region. But I noticed that I have quite a holistic and long-term approach to things. While they describe the male way of thinking as linear and sequential, I can have a perspective that is wider and can take cognizance of several things running at the same time and solving crises one after the other and fighting fires that break out in every which spot. I think it is because of my exposure to my day-to-day exigencies and the fact that I had to maintain a career even though I had 2 children to raise of my own. And then I thought that for the rule of law, whereas formal rules and formal structures seem to be more comfortable for males, I thought that I had a better intuitive ability to perceive the unspoken sense of employees and constituents. I could detect with my nose and with my 6th eye that something is wrong and something is bothering a person. And then I go about in a roundabout way without hurting feelings of trying to find out what the problem is all about. And then I think women can demonstrate a sense of balance. And this is borne out by the literature that says, between earning or maximizing profits and maintaining a work-life balance, a woman business owner would prefer to forego maximizing profit in order to maintain a work-life balance, because for the woman, it is very clear that some non-economic goals are more important than maximizing profits, such as being better at what she does, helping people, maintaining family and work-life balance. And in some societies, women can really be very good communicators relative to their male counterparts. And in my own leadership of the court, for example, whenever I talk to my employees, I don't talk to them as just delivering units of justice. In the first place, that's quite difficult to quantify. While a private company can already generate a projected revenue target, I cannot do that. I can only say that we must let our people see that not only do we have faster disposition and clearance rates of our docket, but we must let our people feel that justice is really being served. So a woman can speak more powerfully about quality on top of minimum quantitative measurements. And so, what do all the above mean for APEC leadership? I think you, as a group, are powerful enough that you can shake traditional norms of thinking and start the out-of-the-box thinking so that indeed we can have a fairer world where women's unique abilities are formally recognized for what they are: institution builder, business builders, consensus builders, problem solvers, crisis managers, while at the same time always being driven by the desire to help others, their communities, and most especially their loved ones. You can also say that we can make family orientation a measurement of the excellence by way businesses are being run. So mainstream it instead of making it just an incidental outlier. You could also push for more flexibilities by not requiring that when an interviewee who is applying for a high position is saying and disclosing in her interview that she had interruptions in her career because she had to take care of an ailing parent or a child or a sickness in the family, that is not taken against her, but that be recognized as her ability to sacrifice her own personal goals for a higher objective. I also wish that when an interviewee says that maximizing my potential income is not my life goal, but it is to be of service to others and to maintain a work-life balance, you will appreciate that as the prospect of having an applicant, leader, or employee who can bring also a sense of balance to your own organization. I could also say that we should push for more transparency and a fairer playing field. Now, am I talking about these simply by reading the literature on women, business, leadership, and the rule of law? No, I'm not. I come here because of my own personal story. I gave up a stellar career because I graduated at the top of my law school. So naturally, I was the target of the headhunters in my field. And I opted out of the law firm life because I gave birth in my second year in the law office, and then 4 months later, I became pregnant again. So I had to decide pretty quickly because I knew very well what the consequence would be to those 2 children of having a mother who would come home past midnight every day. So I opted out of that fast track to go into the academe, which would allow me to have more control of my time. And I was given all the dire warnings that very, very ambitious people give talented individuals. You are going to regret forever your decision. When your kids hit high school and you cannot afford to give them the best kind of education, you will come to regret it. You are afraid of success. All of those stereotypical analysis of why an individual should choose a different path, even though a very fantastic career opening is already there, just waiting to be grabbed and nurtured and developed. I did not need to speak to those warnings because it was very clear to me that if I do not succeed as an individual in my basic core function, which is to be a mother who is able to care for her children, to allow the family to be centered on the correct set of values, even while I am developing my intellectual side, and of course, my need to also feel that I can contribute to the community. If I do not attend to that, I will forever not know myself anymore. And so I opted out. And by God's grace, I got fantastic consultancies, one after the other, even while I was raising 2 children. Sometimes I would bring the 2 children to consultancy meetings. They would find it funny. When I got my graduate degree in Ann Arbor, I brought 2 children along with me on the stage to accept my diploma. So what I thought I was saying is, I am comfortable with myself, and I will be as excellent I can be in whatever position has been open to me. Now, those people who told me you will forever regret it cannot say that anymore because I'm Chief Justice. In other words, people should not negate the validity of the unorthodox path And women are making a loud cry that the unorthodox way by which they are trying to contribute to the economy and make sure that their families are all right should now be considered as also orthodox. It is high time it be mainstreamed. And so I will end by saying, women, as Churchill said, holding the cradle, rule the world, but I don't think that's really fair. Men should also do cradling work and find out the richness that taking care personally of their children can bring them. Women hold half of the world, another saying goes, but let this burden not be unduly heavy because of biases. We must recognize female characteristics as equipped for solving certain situations and duly reward the same. And the ideal is when we women have been enabled to help bring about a world in which we can be fully who we are and yet be engaged fully with our male counterparts in these activities and these careers, that we also take sufficient time to help other women in less fortunate situations. So thank you very much, and good day.